So the first version of Glovo was actually just a text app.
You became a unicorn really, really quick.
And I'm very, very, very excited about quick commerce. I think it's going to change our lives, all of ours, in a positive way. Today, we have bigger problems.
We're a big startup with bigger problems.
We have bigger problems. I mean, the problems just get bigger. The most expensive thing you can do in a business, any business, is educate the market, change people's habits. Yeah. Educate the retailers that they think they can sell or want to sell on your app. COVID changed that as well. I think it's going to be fun times. This is going to be a good decade for your country.
Salut, prieteni! Bine v-am regăsit în oficiul Moldova Innovation Technology Park. Eu sunt Alex Curdila și suntem la un nou episod în limba engleză a podcastului Rethink IT. Suntem în sezonul 4 și ne bucurăm să avem iarăși un invitat de calibru internațional care o să ne povestească mai multe, nu doar despre cum funcționează afacerea sa, dar și poate o să-mi reușească să-l discos, să ne povestească și despre alte afaceri sau concepte în ce privește tehnologiile și evoluțiile care le avem în ultimul timp în lume. O să fac acum trecerea în limba engleză și tot podcastul o să rămână în limba engleză. Sasha Michaud, CEO at Glovo. Hi, I'm very happy to have you here. I know, like we spoke before the podcast, you started to come here regularly, so welcome back to Moldova. It's just, I guess, a few more trips until you start learning the language. And, if we were not at a podcast, I would say, we all know which words you learn when you learn a language to feel more relaxed around people. I'm very happy that you're here, and you came here right now for the occasion of Startup Moldova Summit. It's a big event. Startup Moldova Summit is I would say unique for Moldova, even though we have kind of multiple events in its approach and how they do things, in the success of the startups that come from there. And obviously it's also a sign of success when you come and people like you to provide the trust and the transfer of image, if you might say, to such an event. What's your impression for the event this time?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks Alex, for the invitation to this amazing podcast. Pleasure. I was really, really impressed. I think the format really worked. I think, a day and a half is perfect. Also, the level of presentations, I think, except mine, were very good. A lot of foreign speakers, which I think is really important for Moldova. I knew a couple of them, actually, a guy from Sweden and from the US, Bill from the US, who's a big fun there. So very impressed by the format. It was very dynamic, and hopefully looking forward to it next year.
I asked Krim, the previous guest, what he found different or new, or what he's taken away with him from the conference, and I'm going to ask the same of you.
Okay, for me, there's a small detail. I mean, this is a startup conference, and most startup conferences, especially bringing scale-ups like Glovo, they end up talking about some advice and things like that, but actually lose the focus. And I think what Olga did really well, and I mentioned that to her yesterday, is between the keynotes, she would put in startup pitches, like 2-minute startup pitches, and I thought that was really cool. So basically the audience,
keep the momentum going.
Keep the momentum, change the dynamic, different type of presentation. Also give the startups maximum visibility, which I think is super important, instead of putting them in a competition at the end of the day. But there was a competition as well, but I just thought that was a nice touch, and I'll be taking that away with me for helping other people in conferences, just as an idea.
It's like, what I saw in Moldova, you guys should do
exactly.
It too. Okay, let's talk about Glovo. It's a big company. It's a big company here in Moldova. I first had my first relationship with Glovo back when it was 21, 22 or something like that, when I moved back from the US, where everything is dominated by Uber Eats and DoorDash and whatever. So for me, as a person who spent a decade in the US, it was very refreshing, because somehow over there, all of these apps, they had a corporate sort of feel to them. It was like very structured and very robust and not really colorful. And then someone's like, "Why don't you order food from Glovo?" I'm like, "What is Glovo?" And then I became obsessed with Glovo, and I'm guessing the same thing happened to all of your customers around the world. But what happened was you became a unicorn really, really quick. If you could walk us through what was your initial few steps and then how it all, I'm guessing like an avalanche effect or snowball effect.
Yeah.
You guys grew really fast in just a few years.
Yes, I mean, the idea behind Glovo was actually not really focused on restaurant food. I think it was really about replicating what Uber were doing with ride hailing in the US. But instead of moving people around the city, wouldn't it be great to have an app that moved things around the city? And that would obviously buying things as well, but also, courier services and just bring, give your city in your palm of your hand concept. So the first version of Glovo was actually just a text app, which you would write in what you wanted. And we'd go out and get it, often buying it, of course, going to your favorite restaurant, store, etc. Go and pick this up for me. And it was hugely viral because it gave the power to the user. I mean, imagine you have an app that you can just literally do anything within a reasonable size. We still had the boxes, so it wasn't. But obviously, it wasn't a scalable business. I mean, we didn't have we didn't have an economics behind it. In fact, every order we were losing money, around between €2 and €3. So the faster we grew, the more money we burnt.
Yeah.
And at the same time, food delivery companies were springing out all over the place. In the UK, Deliveroo raised a lot of money. And what they were doing is they were changing the traditional food delivery, which already existed. It existed even before the internet.
Yeah.
People used to phoning up,
pizza, sushi, whatever.
Then the internet came along. They built these marketplaces where actually you could do it online, and then they do it. But the problem with the business model up until companies like Glovo and Deliveroo obviously led that in the UK, was that the logistics piece was managed by the restaurant. So when you'd ordered on online, there's a high probability that something bad happened with that order, mainly that it didn't even arrive because the connection between the marketplace and the restaurant, there was no guarantee that they had a courier available or if they had couriers even working, and the UX was pretty terrible. And it ended up only focusing on really low-end restaurants. Nothing wrong with pizzas, nothing wrong with kebabs, nothing wrong with Chinese food, but in the end it was very small. And our users in our text app were actually starting to order high-end restaurants. And that's when we saw, so the first year of Glovo 1.0, which was literally textbooks of picking up things, gave us a great data set of what customers were really looking for and allowed us to build Glovo 2.0, which was very focused on restaurants, but with a great difference of high-end. And it's sort of what Deliveroo did in the UK at the same time. And then, of course, there was, companies like Postmates on the West Coast, US. Uber at that point hadn't launched Uber Eats.
Yeah.
DoorDash was also getting started in the US. So there's
Instacart and all
it's
the
all
others.
springing up all over the place. One thing, though, that Glovo, very different to all these companies we've just spoken about, apart from Instacart, which was supermarket, and wasn't necessarily 30-minute delivery. Instacart was maybe even next day, is that we were multi-category from day one. Because the concept of the way we built it wasn't really thinking about restaurant food, I always use this example, but, it's not that wow, to bring a hot pizza. It's not, but it is wow to bring, nappies at 1 a.m. when your baby's crying, you've run out. That's a wow moment.
Yeah.
And that's what, but of course, most of our customers were really using us for food at relatively high-end, mid to high-end restaurants. So we built Glovo 2.0 around that concept. And then we discovered, of course, that there was a lot of other people with this great idea all around the planet.
We're not unique.
Yeah, we're doing similar stuff. And then there were some companies moving from the old model, which was, sending the order to the restaurant and the restaurant delivering it, to adjusting that and moving it into more, where the UX is much better, where you can follow the courier around the city, you know exactly what time it's going to arrive. The UX is absolutely amazing. That's what made us kill it. And a good example is when we set up in Spain, pretty much there was one dominant player, which was Just Eat. They're still around, Just Eat. Takeaway Just Eat, they merged. They pretty much had 95% market share. And we, our increased UX just ate into their market share. And it wasn't through marketing or it wasn't through investment. I think it was just amazing UX and having better restaurants and better stores on the platform. So we were multi-category from day one. Obviously, food and restaurant food was what drove the growth. But we kept our vision to be multi-category. So we didn't just focus on that. So we kept supermarkets open. We kept retailers. anything.
It must have been hard. Like, for sure that people are using your app for this specific thing. They want to get food from the restaurant. But was it hard to insist, maybe with your investors or even with your team or even with yourself, why we should keep all the other options available as well if they're not as profitable?
Absolutely, bang on. I mean, we had many of our investors who were saying, why you're defocusing? 90% of your business and the fastest growing area and the easiest one to grow is restaurant food. The market's already educated, by the way, very important fact. I think this is great for any founder. The most expensive thing you can do in a business, any business, is educate the market, change people's habits. Yeah. Restaurant food was already there. People understood. It was already being done before the internet, as I mentioned. It was done after the internet with a one-tier marketplace, and then companies like ourselves. So yeah, we got a lot of pressure from investors not to be multi-category, but we really thought it was the essence of making us cool. And I think you brought it up earlier that one thing you liked about Glovo after coming back from the US was it's not such a transactional app.
Yeah.
And we did have your whole city in there, and we had cool stuff that's not just a hot pizza, and that made us different. And that was one of the things that I think that's why we survived. And I do say survived. It was really tough. I mean, we nearly closed down the business 3 times.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Like, what were those steps where it almost happened, and what made it stop?
So we had a couple of handicaps, I think, in our business. Three probably. Mm-hmm. The one, to be honest, is we were probably not that great at fundraising. Me certainly as well. We raised close to €1 billion, so mm-hmm. we've raised a lot of money.
Yeah.
But actually, all our competitors were raising bigger rounds earlier and getting much more funded. And obviously, we compete with DoorDash still today. We compete with Uber Eats now. Deliveroo was a big competitor of ours, still is. We still compete with them in Italy.
But you have to do it yourself without a backing of someone.
Well, we had funding, mm-hmm. but we had a lot less funding than Delivery Hero, who ended up acquiring us, was a publicly traded company. Mm-hmm. So, and all these companies I've mentioned, by the way, are all publicly traded now. So we were had to do more with less. So it was pretty tough. We nearly closed down the business 3 times. We were very lucky, and it became super competitive.
Was it finding new funding that helped? Was it convincing the investors to not leave you, or what was exactly? Because I imagine, you get the call, hey, this is not working. We need to either sell or change or whatever. And you as the CEO obviously have to, it's your child. You have to defend it against all these people.
Yeah. So first of all, obviously we had, the funding issue was a huge handicap. I also think being in Spain, having headquarters in Spain, we got a lot of investors who said, we've never seen anything huge come out of Spain. There's been no unicorns yet, and there is a bit of bias there. Okay. Thank God.
That's patriotism.
It's not so existent today. Now there's a few companies. Mm-hmm. We're always one of the first. And then third, which is all linked to the same thing, was a little bit is. We were a little bit late behind the curve. The big funds the funds with deep pockets that were really interested in had probably already invested in one of our competitors. Mm. So that was it. And then to reframe that all around that, all of them were focused on food. And so we had our investors saying, why don't you focus just on one thing that's really going well instead? But we kept then. So to go back to, I think that was a great decision for us to continue multi-category because it kept the app it kept that coolness. It had that every now and then wow moment. Less than 10% of orders were non-restaurant food, but they were wow moments always. Okay. Picking up stuff, pet food, pharmacy, going to the grocers and picking up stuff.
What's the percentage today?
The percentage today, so food is still around. Depends on the market, but around 75% restaurant food and 25%. But the fastest part of the business is what we call quick commerce, which is everything else. So we call quick commerce is everything from groceries, which is the second largest category, all the way to pharmacy, electronics, health and beauty is a big one, pets, funnily enough, surprising. And if you look at the things I've just mentioned, it's very convenience oriented, which is a trend, by the way, in retail. young people now are not doing the monthly buy or the weekly buy. They're actually buying very little bits every now and this is the dynamic.
I buy what I need now.
So it's the fastest growing part of retail commerce as well, this convenience thing. And we're right in there, which I think is fantastic. But if you see the list of the products I just mentioned or the items, they're all high frequency.
Yeah.
So very important. We'll start with restaurant food or food. We eat 3 times a day. There's 3 opportunities a day generally to order, even more if you want to binge. But the others, health and beauty, pharmacy, groceries. These are items that generally you'll go more than once a month to buy.
And if you have a good experience once.
Exactly. So this is the first phase for me of quick commerce is high frequency goods that I'm going to order on a regular basis. And not necessarily, our trainers, which we're wearing the same brand, which I'll probably, buy every 8 months or 9 months or once a year. I think this will come later. I think the UX is there to make that happen as well. I mean, the example of mine, I bought online with Glovo. This is a,
you did?
This is a Swiss company who sells online, but they also sell with retailers, of course.
Yeah, I bought mine from ASOS, I think.
There you go.
Yeah.
So those retailers in Barcelona, which is our headquarters, are online in Glovo.
Okay.
And I know which trainers I want, and I know my size, and I know and they're the same price, by the way. So I can get them delivered in 30 minutes, or I can wait 2 days for them to come from Zurich. So
you guys don't charge more for whatever item?
We charge a delivery fee, which generally coincides with e-commerce delivery fees as well.
Right.
So it's not the exact price, as in higher or lower. I think that's it. I think the concept is if Glovo's going to go and get it for you, instead of you getting in your car or your motorbike, driving across the city in the traffic, doing the queue, paying and coming back, if Glovo's going to bring it to you at more or less the same price, why wouldn't you use us?
Yeah.
And I think that's the
it's
mantra.
Basically kind of a buy and forget about it. It's going to come to you.
It's just, I mean, to me, it's probably cheaper actually buying them in Glovo because if the delivery fee was probably less. And I have Prime, which is our subscription. So I have no delivery fee, by the way. Mm-hmm. So it's actually probably cheaper than them sending it and charging me, 4 years for the e-commerce delivery fee. I didn't check. It wasn't an issue. It wasn't about.
So, I mean, you use your own app, right?
Absolutely.
Do you use competitors' apps?
I test them out.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't use them that much. I should more. I should really know what my competitors are using their UX to really. Yeah. I try to force myself to do it. Generally, I mean, in most of the countries where we operate, we're in 22 countries, we're market leader. So we generally have better content and better service. There's a lot of advantage of being market leader or very close to market leader. And in Spain, that's the case.
But going back to people purchasing items, not just food, at least for my generation, older, you kind of have to convince the person to trust you to make the right choice. So for example, if I want to buy pants, normally I have to go check them out. I have to put them on me and whatnot. Shoes, yes, you can know your size, but they might size them differently. And you don't know how it's going to look with the clothes you have, other items as well. Did you, when you started doing this, did you encounter some sort of resistance or when people were ordering? Did you try to push it out to educate the market for this? No. You weren't the only one, of course, but everyone kind of had to do it. Gen Z and Alpha, they really, like you said, they really don't care. They would rather just sit at home and everything come to them. But for us, I say if I don't touch it, I don't know what I'm getting.
So I think the big difference and where we're focused today, hyper-focused, is pretty much not aiming for the stuff you just talked about, of stuff that I need to try it on or I'm unsure.
Okay.
We focus on things that users know
like you said, cosmetics and
exactly what they want. Examples, no? I know these trainers. These are not the first trainers I bought from this brand. I know my size. I know what works. So I know exactly what I want, and there's no decision making there. A good example would be things like toothpaste. I know what toothpaste I want. I'm not scared that you're going to bring me. So going into the more complex stuff, which is generally around e-commerce.
What Amazon tries to do.
I think they've really discovered, one of you just talked about fashion and clothes. One of the big things hindering the growth of clothes is actually, I'm worried it's not going to fit. And what do? They spun it around and give you free returns. So just, and you have, these young kids just buying 20 things and returning 19. They don't give a shit.
I like what ASOS does. you measure yourself and you tell the app,
Yeah.
and then it will only show you the items in your size.
So my angle on this is I'm going to let the e-commerce specialist educate the market.
And then I'll
And
enter
then
it.
I'm just going to give them the customers a better UX because I'm going to deliver it in 30 minutes. And they can't do that, by the way, because
Okay.
their products are generally thousands of kilometers away from the customer, or hundreds at least. So it's impossible for them. And one thing that I am is I'm enabling retailers who's really close to consumers, high street stores, chains,
Yep.
mom and pop stores, SMEs. 90% of our partners, we've got about 180,000, I think, today active on the platforms in different countries. 90% are small businesses, very close to the consumer. So that's the competitive advantage. And so I'll be using fast delivery as a great
From
UX,
all of these
a great
partners?
UX compared to e-commerce. And I really believe the next decade, the fastest growing segment of e-commerce in the world will be quick commerce. Because, and in this city, which is the capital, and I think there's 1.2 million people here, most of the products we probably buy are probably available in this city. You just can't see them today. And certainly in Barcelona. I mean, so I think there's going to be exciting times, and I think quick commerce is going to be absolutely incredible. And we'll be much bigger, of course. This, 25% of our business today, the fastest growing area is the 25%, right? So there will be one day very soon in Glovo that everything that is not restaurant food will be much, much bigger than restaurant food.
Would you have to make like a super app with it? Is that where it's going?
I think so.
Go
The super
the
app concept.
Alipay way?
Yeah, I mean, the super app concept is, I think, very geography dependent. So my perception is in Europe, I don't think there's a need for a super app. I mean, financial transactions work. Everyone's got a credit card. Generally.
Then there's regulations.
Whereas you have emerging economies, I mean, Africa for sure, where there's not a major e-commerce player sometimes. Literally, e-commerce is super difficult because of logistics and it's just chaotic. So, there's the Amazon of Africa, Jumia, but they're really struggling to really make the business work. Fintech, they've had to build local apps through text messaging.
Yeah, it's huge in Africa.
So basically, there is an opportunity in certain regions, Central Asia possibly. Kaspi is a great example in Kazakhstan. What a company. They've built the super app there. E-commerce, fintech, they're also in grocery deliveries. I mean, they're a publicly traded company on the London stock market. I mean, I think it's close to 20 billion valuation just operating in one country. They've recently gone into Turkey, but really the valuation is built on being the super app of Kazakhstan. So there's an opportunity to do that still in certain regions. I don't think in all.
Okay. You mentioned a lot UX. And I really like it specifically because usually people will say, we have better products or drivers are nicer or whatever, costs. But I know, I'm enjoying the fact that that your strength is user experience and it makes it easy. And I'm wondering if maybe as an advice for those working on whatever startups that they're working on, how do you choose your strength? And if there's maybe something that can be improved, should it get improved, or you still focus on what's your strength?
So Glovo's a global company.
Yeah.
We've got our headquarters in Barcelona. There's around 1,400 people there, but we're a very global company, but we're very local, right? It's all about local execution. Yep. And I get asked this question quite a lot, how local, and we try and be as local as possible. But the reality of our business, it's probably 80%, maybe 90% getting two things right. And that's across the whole board. The first one is having great content. So I want to have your favorite restaurant or restaurants, your stores, your items on my app. Mm-hmm. So it's having the great content and the best content. And the second one is excellent UX, user experience. And that's from the app, how it's visualized, but above all, that when I say I'm going to deliver something in 25 minutes, that I more or less do that bang on and that your products arrive in a good state. And that's what we really focus on, those two elements. Now, there's other things that are super important and very local, for example, payment methods, things like that. But if you don't get the first two right, so the way I look at this is We do those globally exactly the same. We can adjust how we operate in a different city, and we can close limits, reduce distances and things like that. But generally those two things we focus on. And then the rest are very local. Often how we'll do marketing. It might be very different how we do marketing in Moldova compared to maybe Romania or compared to Ukraine. Or, the media assets are very different in what works. Sometimes television is amazing and sometimes it doesn't work at all. But those are things that we can adjust locally, and then also how the app's perceived in local cultures and local languages as well. But the two basics of that. So to answer your question, founders and building, especially early on, focus on what you're fixing. Focus your unique value proposition. It's probably one thing, or it's probably two. It's not going to be 10. Don't make this wonderful app with, lights and fireworks and people just talk about your app. Focus on the stuff that's really useful and that's going to drive a different to the user. What's going to really make that user use your app once he downloads it or your website or whatever your service is. Once they use it once, get them to repeat using and stay on. So it's about retention and increasing frequency.
How often do you experiment? So the reason I'm asking is, I know a company in Moldova, a really big company, kind of almost proudly says that they beta test their changes to their app live. So they don't do beta testing, they release it, and then they get complaints or praises, and then they decide what to change. That is their experiment. I personally don't agree with it because as a customer or consumer, you get annoyed with it, and then you start using it less, obviously. But I wonder if you guys do it at all, and maybe you can tell us one of your experiments.
So we don't do that, and I don't think it makes sense with the Glovo business because giving a user a bad experience probably means losing that user, that customer. Remember, we're highly competitive markets generally, so we try and avoid giving users any bad experience. So I don't think that would work. It could work in certainly. It feels to me that might work very early on in the tactical stage of a company. I think there's definitely two phases in a company. One is very tactical, where you're really on top of the little details. The founders are actually involved in super detailed things, very early stage, and obviously the first year, maybe the first 2 years, and you're testing things out. You haven't really got the magic sauce yet. But once you start having the playbook and you start having that, you really start to begin to put in scalable processes, scalable teams, start repeating things, not doing things in every single different country in a different way, and start getting trend. I think there's two phases, and to me, that feels beta testing with your end customers. Or I've heard beta testing with a small proportion of customers. That to me would maybe make sense
if they sign up for it. Yeah.
Or not even that. Maybe I'll just show a new version to 5% of my users and see how it turns, what the data numbers give back. But also depends on the numbers, right? If you have got a large user base, then I think we do a lot of tests with employees. And the good thing is, we've got a lot of employees. We've got 3,000 employees worldwide in our offices.
So statistically speaking, they're relevant.
Just Barcelona office, the amount of Glovo orders happen every day is incredible. So we can test stuff with employees.
Okay.
And that's useful.
But did you ever we're going to launch in this country and we're going to add this specific feature that we haven't had before, or remove this feature?
We've tested some services out and features, like handyman and, things around, fixing things and, putting, we've tested. They're not negative to the economics of the app because obviously they're very simple, but they don't really, change things much. We're perceived conceptually. Customers see us as an app that brings you something super quick, and generally, with the size of the business, they really associate it to restaurant food. And more they're associating it to retail and stores and things like that. And I think for the time being, that's our focus. But I think
stay who we are.
I think there's enough growth there. If you look at, there's good statistics of China and Korea and the amount of orders per capita. Literally everyone's in China is using an app of one of the companies. You're talking 30 orders a month. We're still in 2 or 3 in Europe. I mean, the potential growth, and some of our markets even lower. I mean, Moldova is even lower. So that's a potential multiple of just the current customer base has a 30x growth without getting any new customers, just retaining the ones I have. Potentially over the next 5 years, I should be able to drive 10x, 15x growth just from the customer bases.
And are you approaching it in a it's going to come kind of way? Or are you trying to take specific steps to accelerate it?
No,
Other than marketing, of course.
No, I think, adding what I said earlier, adding content and making sure that our consumers know that you can pick up other things apart from just restaurant food is key. And I think there's an educational piece there that obviously going to happen organically. You can't just drive that. If you spend too much money on that, it's going to be super expensive. But I think obviously there was a changing point, by the way, which is super interesting. So as I said earlier, we were multi-category, right? From day one, and we kept loyal to that. A lot of investors questioned that, probably quite rightly, but we felt it was where we really wanted to go, and that was our vision. And then what happened? This crazy thing called COVID happened, and COVID, if you remember, the first country in Europe to get it was Italy, which is a huge market for us. And Italy decided, well, delivery, closed down retail.
But delivery is allowed.
But delivery is allowed. But what they did is they closed all the supermarkets. So you couldn't go to the supermarkets and you couldn't go to the stores. But the stores wanted to sell. So they started really pushing using delivery apps. And then Spain, 2 weeks after, or a week after, Italy got COVID. Spain got it and they copied Italy. So we were very lucky that the first European countries actually allowed delivery. And of course, what did all our competitors do? Whoa, we better get into groceries very quick. And we better get into all that. And we were already there. We already received the pain points. So COVID was dynamic change. And we could have perceived that as negatives because now we've got competition in everything we do. But I see it the opposite. What they're doing is educating the market. And COVID educated the market. And suddenly people had never ordered groceries through Glovo. Said, wow, this is amazing. It works the same as restaurant. And then we got those customers for life. And they're still using us today after COVID.
I guess that's the difference compared to other companies that also boomed during COVID period, who are now struggling a lot after. When you said COVID, I was like, wait, oh yeah, there was COVID. It seems like it was so long ago.
But for our industry, it was a game changer.
Yeah. So once the restrictions ended, did it slow down a little bit? Or was it steady and still going
up?
No,
it's the exponential growth that happened there, obviously the growth level slowed down, but obviously you had a bigger business, so it's normal. It's easy to grow. If your size of your business is 10, it's easy to grow.
So it was a win-win for you guys.
Totally, and the industry, by the way. And by the way, when we've said it a few times, but educating the market is quite important. Not only the consumer, educate the retailers that they think they can sell or want to sell on your app. COVID changed that as well. We had many partners, supermarkets, retailers that we were trying to get on our app, and we're saying, no, not interested in that, no. And suddenly they were calling us. We need to sell. Can we get on your app? So educated them, and now it's a huge part of their business, the digital part. They really, any retailer now who doesn't have a digital strategy, and we're just part of that, I think, in my opinion. They've also got to have their own digital strategy, own their own customers, maybe even do their own deliveries, maybe pickups. We also have pickup on our app, but they can do that. Anyway, any retailer that doesn't have a digital strategy will be lost, right? And I think we're an ally, and my objective is to be their best digital partner. So in many aspects, maybe identifying stock, super good service, maybe also do their logistics just for them, maybe not through our app, often the logistics service. Of course, we have pickup already that you don't necessarily have to use the delivery; you can go and pick it up on the way home. So I think. That's super interesting, and I'm very, very, very excited about quick commerce. I think it's going to change our lives, all of ours, in a positive way.
Going back a little bit to the startup phase, when did you notice that the stress of having a new business and having it grow, kind of the phases of startup? We're running out of money. We need to move fast. We need more customers. We need to please our investors, blah, blah, blah. Does it ever ease away? Does it become more relaxing to go to work and run this business?
No, I think, first of all, you got to be passionate about it, right? So I often feel stress and things, because we work a lot. I mean, to build any company, not just a tech startup, to build any business, it requires hard work. Make no mistake about that. So you work hard, and if you enjoy what you're doing, you have good moments and bad moments, and we've had both many times. And I really think that if you're really enjoying it, you don't get stressed. You just fix it, and then the real highs come when you do fix those problems. So no, and to answer your question quickly, I think absolutely not. We just today we have bigger problems.
We're a big startup with bigger problems.
We have bigger problems. I mean, the problems just get bigger. In fact, I've set up with Oscar, the other co-founder of Glovo. Actually, he's the smart one. He's the CEO. You've called me CEO a couple of times. We're joint CEOs the first year, but after that, he's the clever one. We set up a fund, and the founders, going through these growing pains right at the beginning of, the pre-seed, so the first year, 2 years, and we just joke, don't worry, the problems you have, they just continue and they get bigger. So good luck, and you have to be prepared for that.
And then you get to the phase where you have to sell your business or someone wants to buy it, and you guys went through it. How was it hard for you in a personal kind of way? And usually it happens that the founder or the founders stay and the team stays, but sometimes it happens the buyer comes in and goes no, or they even shut it down. There's different ways of how it happens. In your case, you stayed. I don't know if a bigger part of the team stayed as well. This also transitioned from we're independent to we are being purchased by someone. Doesn't matter the conditions afterwards. If you could walk us through it, the whole process and how it made you feel.
So in our case, it was very not typical. We turned down offers in the past. We wanted to stay independent. We wanted to be one of these, big, world players. We thought we had an opportunity. But we had a fairly early investor, Delivery Hero, one of our competitors, invested. And, every round afterwards, they continued to invest. The feeling was that they would always want to acquire us. And it became more and more difficult, I think, to stay independent. And to be honest, we had a great relationship. They were on our board. And, the CEO on the board. So it came to a point that we felt all synergies ended up, sitting down with them and saying, hey, let's join forces. And we were operating in a number of regions where they weren't operating.
Okay.
And Delivery Hero is like a holding group, per se. I mean, they have a big tech team and they offer tech solutions to the brands, but they have different brands in different parts of the world. Now, the leader in Middle East, the leader in Latin America, we're the leader in Central Eastern Europe, we're in Central Asia and Africa as well, then Korea. So they have a number of brands that work very differently in very different parts of the world. And so we're fairly autonomous in that sense, that it still feels like it's our baby. It's our startup. It's our colors. The front end tech, a lot of the tech is still built in Barcelona. So I think it's very unique. If we'd been acquired by somebody like Uber Eats, well, next day they would have changed the brand. Obviously, they wouldn't. Yeah. So we probably, wouldn't be there, because it wouldn't make any sense. Our roles were not needed anymore. Yeah. So I think in that sense, Delivery Hero was, an amazing company, and they are an amazing company. I think they're doing a lot of the right things, and just the amount of markets there and the amount of markets that their brand is market leader just shows. And for me, they're the European tech champion in our space, in fact, because all the others have been acquired by American companies.
I know after this you go into Ukraine. You spoke about it, and it's an important question because with what's going on in Ukraine, and I don't know if you're present in any of the Gulf countries and similar situation. Mm-hmm. What made you stay as a business when you know how dangerous it is for the business and for the employees? Mainly because your actual business is people driving around or riding their bicycles when there's stuff happening. So how did you make the decision to stay or leave? Obviously you stayed, but what was the conversation?
Well, I mean, we woke up one morning with a mass invasion. I think many people thought at that time Ukraine's just going to be completely demolished by, the
3
Russians.
days, they said.
Yeah. So we immediately closed down operations in all the cities. We were in, I think, 42 or 43 cities, if I remember rightly. And immediately, the local team in Kiev, our GM, Marina, called us and say, why the hell are we closing down the business? And we said, well, you've got a mass invasion coming on, and it's unsafe. And she said, couriers are out there delivering using Telegram. Shops are open. Restaurants want to sell. And
don't be cowards, basically. Yeah.
I agree that in the warfront invasion areas, obviously, it absolutely doesn't make any sense. But we need to reopen. So we checked with the government, obviously, and is it okay to reopen? They said, absolutely, please. Do we want business as usual? We're gonna fight this. So we opened the safer cities that weren't on the front line. I think around 37, 38 cities. They're still open today. And the business is larger today than it was pre-war. And we're a huge brand, obviously, now, and a recognized and loved brand.
Because you stayed?
Because we stayed. We're a foreign company. I go every 6 months. I try and go every 6 months to meet the team. We've got a lot of relationships established there. One of the biggest foreign tech companies still investing in the country. And I've been actively, lobbying other Spanish companies to open, not tech companies so much, but I mean, Mango's a big retailer. They opened fairly quickly, the shops. Inditex, the owners of Zara and other brands, took a long time. They had their shops, but they closed. And we were lobbying a lot to us being a Spanish company as well, to say, hey, you can do business there in Ukraine. Please reopen. And they've reopened recently.
It's a kind of high risk, high reward situation, but except the risk is only in your head mainly.
It's a terrible moment, and it's a terrible insecurity as well. And what it's impeding is a great economy like Ukraine, and it's a great economy, and it was in a great position. And I think that's probably one of the reasons.
It's a big country.
But it's probably one of the we talk about NATO and EU, so that's easy to fix. Say no. But the problem was Ukraine's economy was going in such the right direction that a neighboring country like that, so open, so business friendly.
They were very techy.
And also the talent there. So I think all that. And so, it's tough times, but at the end of the day, the operations are working well. We've built tech that specifically, if there's a risk in a city, we can close it down. We can give our consumers back their money if they paid for an order that's on the way, which obviously we wouldn't have that tech built normally. But and for me, it's one of my highlights of, these last 11 years being part of that and being, working hand in hand with the Ukrainian team. I come back so energized, you wouldn't believe it. And people can't, I go home and, wow. And I just come back full of energy, and I can't explain it.
People abroad wouldn't really understand because they're so far away. You just see it on TV, and it feels like a movie. And what is it? 4 years, and it feels like it's just dragging on forever. Why should we care? But going in and being there and talking to these people, and even when the whole thing started, people were skeptical here a little bit, even though we were mostly scared because we would have been next. An American friend, and I'm like, look, come with me to one of these centers where they help people that come from Ukraine, and you'll see it for yourself. And there was this mother with a child. It was really cold. They were not wearing clothes. And I gave her my card, and I said, look, go buy whatever you want. Help these people. She's like, but they don't speak English. You don't have to speak the same language. Just go do the thing. And then she comes back, and she's like, now I know. Well, yeah, obviously, it's not something that we would want for anybody to happen. But I know for a fact that anybody who came here to interact with people affected by the war, or that went over there, came back, I'm like, this is exciting. We need to help. We need to do this. We need to do that. And I wish more people would do that.
Yep. And also, from a digital perspective, even historically, Ukraine has been a powerhouse of tech talent. In fact, if you look worldwide, Ukrainians we've gone to other places and built massive unicorns. It's like and as a government, by the way, they have so much to teach Governments are normally the worst, right? They're building tech. They don't think of the user. They think of their own. They built an app which 30 million people use every week. You know, that you can do everything.
App?
Yeah, the D app. It's like, it's a reference I've never seen in
Yeah,
all
we have Evo thanks to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a reference that other governments and other countries should be using, how to digitalize society and make it useful, thinking from the consumer's perspective, not from the government's perspective. Most governments think, I want to fix this, and they give a terrible product to the users who end up never using it.
Yeah.
They're an example. And great recognition of that is Fedorov, was the digital minister, which in most countries is not that important a minister, but in Ukraine it is now the defense minister. So he's probably the most important person right now in Ukraine, and just shows. And he's an amazing guy, and a young guy as well, a non-politician. He's a doer. He just no politics, just get shit done.
And I don't know if you've noticed on your visits here, but this is kind of the approach for the past few years in Moldova as well. It's like we are going to say that we do something, and we're going to do it, and we're not going to focus on the details, on like how or what. This is the deadline. We guys need to do it. We will do it, and we will show that first we can keep our promises. 2, we are very agile. If we find a problem, we'll just go around it, or find a creative solution to it. And I think that's what kind of separates this region, is because of what we were exposed to, Soviet times and the crash of the Soviet Union, and the 90s were not fun at all. It made us very creative in our problem-solving skills. So whenever you give a person with this background a problem at work, they will always find different solutions to fixing it, which is not something I really encountered in the US. Yes, there's problem in the US, poverty and low education and whatnot, but they still think they live in the greatest country in the world, which kind of slows them down a little bit. Yeah. And you only have a few really bright minds that succeed, whom are most of the time immigrants, who have this background of, I need to solve a problem very creatively. So this is why seeing how Moldova promotes itself as, we want to be a live lab for tech products, whatever it's AI or deep tech or cyber or anything else. Come here and you will see how we can, help you get stuff done.
I've been very, very impressed by the public administration here and the government of how quickly they react. They're clearly on a very quick road to EU membership. They're already ahead in transpositions of many regulations, ahead of EU member state countries. I mean, they're already preparing for that. So I've been super impressed, and I think if they continue with that mentality, which is not dissimilar to Ukraine, mentality of, business-friendly environment, get things done, move quickly, less bureaucracy. It'll position the country in a great place, because it'll be a hub for attraction of talent, of businesses wanting to come here. And I think strategically, it's super well located. I mean, where it is, I think, and in my case in Glovo, even more so, because 2 of our largest markets, Ukraine and Romania, are next door to Moldova. So, I think it's gonna be fun times. This is gonna be a good decade for your country.
I hope so. Maybe we can actually join by the time when they say we could. Well, Sasha, thank you very much for coming. I'm very happy that we had this conversation. I was going to ask you about maybe how much Moldovan talent you have in the company, developing the product, but maybe for next time.
Okay. Well, we've got a small team here. We've got 15 people in the office here in Moldova running the business. But we actually got quite a few engineers from Moldova in headquarters.
In Barcelona?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, I wish you a safe trip to Ukraine. And I know you like to take the train afterwards. So enjoy your time. And, let's hope everything grows for your business here.
Really appreciate it a lot. Thanks for the invitation. And see you next time I'm here.
Thank you. E ce prieteni, iată asta a fost istoria celor de la Glovo. Sper că ați aflat chestii despre cum o companie poate să crească, să se dezvolte într-un mediu în care competiția este foarte, foarte mare. Noi ne vedem cu voi data viitoare. Nu pot să vă promit că o să vorbim în limba română sau în engleză, dar cu siguranță o să fie una dintre aceste două limbi. Eu am fost Alex Curdila, oficiu MITP. Ne vedem data viitoare la Rethink IT. Pa, pa!